Hello everyone, it's Lindsay and welcome back to my channel. I'm not gonna lie, my energy is really waning. I think it's because I know Christmas is just around the corner and it's time to relax. I have all of these fun Christmas ideas planned and I hope I get to them. I really hope I do, because some of these videos are gonna be so fun, but I don't know. It's not happening today, and today's filming day, so I needed something nice and easy. And I've had this video idea in my ideas folder forever. I just never really got around to it because I'm like, is this a little too self-indulgent? Like, are other people even gonna find this interesting? But no matter, I'm gonna do it anyway, assuming that you guys are nosy like me and you like to know people's novel ideas. As I've mentioned before, anytime I get an idea for a story, I put them in this little card holder on a index card, and all of these turn into stories. Actually, I have an entire paper clip full of note cards that have actually become novels for me. And what I do is, like, a lot of times I'll get an idea just for like a character quirk or a setting I want to play with or a specific theme, and I'll just write it down, and periodically I'll flip through these cards and see if any of them would be like amazing mashed together. So for example, with the Glass Witch here, I had 4 different note cards. I probably wrote these down at different times of the year over a number of years. None of them were necessarily related, but I have one card that just says her bones were made of glass. And then I go to talk about like certain other magic ideas that I could throw in, like a magical teacup that refills itself. That was just one idea floating around. I didn't even know if this was going to be a middle grade or a YA idea. Please excuse the ableist language here, but it is an ant who lives in a house filled with rabbits, and I said Uncle Monty style, as if it was like from the series of Unfortunate Events. I like the idea of a kooky older relative who had a collection of animals living in one place and a child going there, and how fun that would be. And then the bottom of this note talks about how I want the house to be kind of like a hobbit house. My next card talks about how I wanted to write a main character that looked like the little girl Ermagerd in A Little Princess. I wanted to tell her story. I wanted to have a heroine who didn't look like normal heroines, who probably wouldn't have gotten the lead roles in other types of stories. I was like, I want to tell her story. And then my last card was a familial magic card. This one, I can't get it to focus, but this one talks about there being only certain magics that can only be performed between specific relatives. So like mother-child is a certain type of magic. Soulmates are a certain type of magic. Grandparent-grandchild magic. The closer you were to these family members, the stronger the magic. The more tension there was in the relationship, the weaker the magic. And like I said, one day it was just flipping through and I put all 4 of these cards together and I was like, dang, I think I might have a book idea. So I just shared this with you to kind of give you an example of what these note cards look like. I'm going to be going through about half of the ones that I currently have. And the thing is, I am going to be censoring some of these, telling you some details and not other details, because these are like my original ideas in some cases. Some of them are quite generic and I will be sharing those with you. But other ones have just like little spoilers or details that I'd rather just keep to myself right now. But maybe one day, if this specific pile ever gets turned into novels, we can go through them in more detail. The stack that I am going to go through, I have already separated into categories. I have some cards on some characters I want to play with one day, some settings, and then plot, theme, or like world building is my biggest section. I just lump those all together in plot, but middle grade, YA, and adult. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the characters. So the funny thing is, I'm like looking through these and almost all of them are like villain ideas. My first one just says, play with a mastermind villain who is always one step ahead of the main character. And then I gave some examples of some of my favorite villains from media. Rumpelstiltskin from Once Upon a Time is one of my favorite villains. He's just so smart. Again, always one step ahead. Same with Klaus. This is from Vampire Diaries. He's just smart, but he's so ruthless. Like I was saying in my wrap up when I talked about the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, I just love a story about like a sadistic king who has goals and meets them. Dr. Robert Ford is from Westworld. That one might be a little bit more obscure. The mastermind, kind of the scientist behind the androids and the theme park and all of that stuff. I just found him so interesting. And of course, Amy, the wife from Gone Girl. All of these characters are really similar because I just love the mastermind trope. I love a villain that is smarter than the main character. I just think that's so engaging to me. So want to play with that one day. Oh gosh. Okay, let's see. How will I talk about these? Yeah, some of these aren't super original, so I guess I don't mind sharing. I have this card and it talks about how I want a sadistic Ramsay like villain, and I'm probably talking about Game of Thrones here, where the bad guy in power kills someone and then makes their loved one wear jewelry made of the device used to kill their loved one. So I wrote down shrapnel, rope for hanging, blade for stabbing, etc. Make it into jewelry, make it very beautiful and dainty to offset the manner in which it was given. That is dark as hell. And I'm like, what book will I ever write that will have something like this? It would have to be like a Game of Thrones-esque book. And I don't think this is an original idea again, so I don't really mind sharing it with you guys, but I'm just like, wow, that's so messed up. I would love to put that in a book one day. Oh, and this one, it's, oh gosh, it's so funny. I'm really starting in the dark here, aren't I? A specific scene in one of the Batman spin-off shows with Oswald Cobblepot. Like, he was saying he would relinquish power to save this little adopted boy that he loved and, like, you know, kind of like treated him as like a son or whatever. So he puts him in the car to keep him safe. And I think like another party was like, oh, we're gonna get that little boy and we're gonna take him and maybe we're gonna kill him and that'll show you. And so Oswald Cobblepot like blows up the car himself with the little boy inside, and he's like, what now? I just like, he did all this to like keep power. And yeah, I want to write a villain like that. Apparently I just want to write a really nasty villain one day. I don't know. I think it's because these things are so shocking and so horrifying, and like, wow, there's really people out there that do this kind of stuff. I don't know. Don't judge me. I should have put this last. A lot of these cards are very like fantasy heavy because a lot of these were written when I was mainly reading and writing YA fantasy. So like they're all like that kind of vibe. The next card in characters is talking about the trope of the illegitimate child kind of being taken in and trained to be an assassin. I find that so fun. I'm kind of having to censor what I have written down here, but I would love to write something like that, like the mental and emotional state that would come with being the bastard child and seeing legitimate children being raised like alongside you, but you have a different path set aside by your, like, I don't know, royal parent, and maybe you get treated different or you get trained different, and how you're treated. I just love that. I think that's so interesting. So I have an idea for that. Oh, another thing I really like in characters. So this one is kind of talking about the trope of a kind of creepy society of strange people in power. An example here I put on this card is like the Silent Brothers from City of Bones. Also the Steel Inquisitors from Mistborn. What is the last one? There's one, there's like a group of oracles in An Ember in the Ashes as well that gives off like the same vibes. It's kind of like creepy, slightly religious folks that everyone in the series is low-key kind of scared of, but also venerate. And that's a trope I would like to play with. This card says, a dark, scary, magical team of guards and or huntsmen for the royals. Think in the vein of Lord of the Rings Forsworn. And then this last card in the character section talks about warrior bonds. I've always really liked, I know it's like not a trope everyone loves, but I love like a bonding trope. It doesn't even necessarily have to be like a romantic one, but like the Parabatai and City of Bones, Cassandra Clare series. I love that stuff. I think that's so fun. And like playing with how deep that bond goes, like how much information do they share between each other? Can they feel each other's pain? Like when one falls in love with someone, does that mean someone else, like they love the same person? Do they hate the same people? Like I feel like that's just such a ripe trope to play with. And yeah, so I wrote it down and have some ideas to play with around that. Okay, I swear it's not gonna stay so dark. We're gonna get to setting. I don't know if it's because of the Nevermore Morgan Crow series, but I've always really liked a hotel trope in middle grade. I've always thought that was fun. So I have a note card here with an idea for like a magical hotel. I have listed a few things that could be different or odd about the hotel, just kind of like a whimsical. This card is giving like big whimsy vibes. And next we have a really fun setting. I have had this card for so long and I have not been able to fit it into a story yet, but it is the, I don't know if it's a trope, but it's a very popular setting, and that is a magical night market. I have some vibes written down. So I wrote down fireflies, mystery, magic, you know, that kind of stuff, and think of the night market from Stardust. Maybe one day I'll get to play with this. Oh, this is like a thriller mystery horror setting, but apparently at one point I wanted to play with the idea of having a horror book set in like a church type setting, whether it's like a home church or maybe like a church camp or any kind of just religious setting. I don't think I would write this anytime soon because this seems like this would do a lot of deconstructing, and yeah, I'm currently on that journey, so I don't think I'm ready to write this yet. But I love how, just to make it more fun, I was like, want the twist to be vampires or witches? Yeah, that's awful, but the main idea there is fun, so maybe one day, we'll see. And then my last card for setting is that I want to play on the trope of setting as the character and do that through sci-fi, so using AI stuff. I think that might be fun. I've never written a sci-fi, but the past few years I've been getting more into it. So I've been getting a few more sci-fi ideas showing up, which is really exciting. I thought I didn't like sci-fi, but that's because I didn't read sci-fi. Started reading it, realized I like it, suddenly start getting ideas for it. Isn't that wild how that works? Now let's move on to some middle grade plot world building ideas. Oh, this one is so fun. This is a recent one that I just came up with. The idea of a child getting a familiar. I think that comes from my love of the trope of like the horse and his boy, right? We have Aragon who's getting his dragon. I've recently really been enjoying the Skandar series about a boy getting a familiar dark unicorn. There's that Skyward, Brandon Sanderson's YA about a girl who has a ship that I think is like AI cognizant, and that's a play on the horse and his boy. So I want to take that and I want to like Lindsayify it. I have some really fun ideas for that. Oh, this one is really great too. I wish I could share the comps for this one because it would be so fun. But my idea is this one would be like a witchy book, but kind of like, I don't know how to talk about this one. I really don't. Okay, I guess I can say it this way. Basically, think of like the Hatfields and McCoys, the Capulets and Montesquieu's, like the warring families, but I want to make it magical, and there's other aspects of this that will make it very fun and hopefully flashy. I have a couple other cards that I'm all, like when I flip through these, I'm always like, oh, this card is definitely gonna go with like this card. It's gonna be great. Yeah, some of these are closer to being novels than others, but that one is fun. I like the idea of a warring family with magic, and I kind of want to make it kooky and fun. I think even though this could go for adult or YA, I put it in middle grade because I feel like I could do more. I have a card here for a very young middle grade book that I would like to write. Might even be like early reader type situation where it's a pirate book. And I think that's all I can share about that. But yeah, I love pirates. Pirates of the Caribbean, it was my identity from the ages of like 8 to 15. Very fundamental in who I am as a person. I would also like to write a middle grade story based around tassomancy or the magic of teas. That just sounds very me because I am a huge tea drinker, and tea is magic. Tea is just magic. There's no other way to describe it, and I think it makes perfect middle grade novels. All right, this one's a very popular trope, but I want to play with the idea of like a main character who lives in a family that has a familial magic. They all can do one type of thing, but the main character can't do that thing right. This is not original at all. I feel like we see this from like Disney movies to books being published. It's everywhere, but I want to make it something that's like deeply me. So I'm thinking like, I don't know, what's a good example? Oh my God. Okay. Next novel idea. Here it is, guys. A story where a girl in a family, middle grade, her family's magic is soup magic. Soup is their specialty. They make tons of soup. Maybe it heals people. Maybe it can curse those who they don't like. But the main character, every time she makes soup, it just turns into like swamp water or beet juice. That kind of vibe. You know what I mean? Where it's just like cookie. Whimsical, like, oh no, I can't do the magic right. Love it. I think this note card too comes from my love of the Aragon series, and it's just werecats. I want werecats in a book. Does that mean they'll be humanoid like werewolves? Does that mean they'll be like pet cats? I don't know, but apparently I want to play with it. Okay, now let's move on to YA. The thing with this, the YA and adult, I feel like these can be kind of mixed back and forth. And a lot of these, when I originally wrote the ideas down, I think I originally intended them to be YA, but as I've gotten older, I've realized that these ideas, the way that they would need to be executed, are actually adult. So just take this with a grain of salt. We'll start with what I think would be more YA though. Number one, simple, a Clue type story. And then there were none. A one by one, they all get murdered in some isolation setting. That's one of my very favorite tropes. Totally makes sense that I would do that. I must have written down this note card sometime around this time of year in the past, but it just is essentially a Christmas Carol retelling. I don't think I would actually execute this idea the way that I have it all written down here, but I'm still drawn to the idea of writing a seasonal story. Like, I loved writing The Glass Witch and how it's like the perfect Halloween read. It would be so fun to do that with Christmas. But I could do that in any age category, especially middle grade. This is a tangent, but there is nothing better than a Christmassy middle grade book. Oh, another idea, this one's been done a lot now, but a Count of Monte Cristo retelling with a female protagonist. I feel like back in like probably 2015, 16, 17 was when I wrote this one down. It was like really big to do retellings, but like gender swap the main character. And so I think that's probably why I wrote this down. There's been a couple of these actually published in YA. It's just because I like revenge stories. It's a little lower on the list, but you know, still there. This one, I don't think I could actually do and publish. It'd have to be something I do on my own. But I would love someone to write a Mummy or Mummy Returns inspired YA adventure novel. I know that there was one recently published, but when I wrote this note card, there was nothing like that. I just want a book about the smart, scholarly character falling in love with like the rough and tumble adventurer. And I wrote down this note card. I'm like, maybe someday I'll figure out how to do this without it being like actually Egyptian, because like that's not really my culture. I don't really want to touch that. Oh, this one's ancient. A dark 12 Dancing Princess retelling. I think I wrote this even before Erin A. Craig had released her novel about this. I do remember talking about an idea that I had for this that I was going to work on this channel in like, I don't know, like what, 2017, after I finished When the Sea Came For Us. I was like, I have this idea. It's like a druid-based 12 Dancing Princess story, and I was going to make it like magical historical fiction, and it was gonna be dark and like it didn't happen because I got really passionate about The Glass Witch, which I'm totally okay with because that all worked out for good, but it was still an idea that I had. Okay, this one's really fun. I don't know when I would ever get to writing this, but it's kind of, let's see, it's kind of like taking on the idea of someone's identity and pretending to be someone else for like scammy reasons in a fantasy setting. I don't know, that just seems like fun. I'll keep that one around. I'm never getting rid of any of these. I have a whole stack of them somewhere that I probably will never write because they either just like deeply don't appeal to me anymore, or they're like things I don't want to touch, but I still keep them around just in case. It's fun to see what you wanted to do at the time, you know? This one is really fun too. This is a Big Little Lies setup, basically where someone is dead, you don't know who, you don't know why, and you don't know who did it, and the story goes from there, and the rest of the novel is like spent trying to figure it out, and you don't get the answers to this question till the very end. I love that. Like, it's like you read it and like there could possibly be multiple people who died. It could be multiple people who did it because everyone's got like a reason for it. I just think that's really fun, and I would love to play with that one day. All right, and lastly, let's dig into the adult plots. So my first one here is a family saga meets like Little Fires Everywhere. This is like my contemporary highbrow literary book that I probably will never get around to writing just because I'm not as passionate about it as my other ones. But at the time when I wrote this note card, I was like, yes, want to do all of this, have a lot to say. I still am very drawn to the idea of writing a family saga, but I think I would like to meld that more into genre fiction than a lit fic story like I have this note card written. But I keep it around because maybe it'll fit with something else one day. You never know. How do I talk about this one? This card I moved into adult. I don't know how to talk about this one because the plot and the vibes for it, I'm like, oh yes, Game of Thrones. But everything else about this is so deeply like 2016 YA. Magic tattoos, eye colors that correspond to different peoples using different magic. Of course, there's one type of eye color in magic that's like supposedly gone forever, but the love interest will show up with that eye color, and like, you know, it's that whole thing. I'm kind of skirting around this idea because I do in general think like the Game of Thrones ideas for this is fun, and I have a lot of character work actually figured out for this type of story, but like I think a lot here would have to change. Man, what a fun time. What a fun time to look through these older cards and like see the tropes and things like that. Oh, and this one's really fun too. So I have this one adult fantasy idea. When I came up with it, it was, I was thinking it was more YA, but now I'm just like, no, this is adult. Like, you need to do what you need to do, and I don't think you can do it in YA, so adult. But it would just be this huge adult fantasy series, and I'm like, when would I write that? I don't have time career-wise to take a chance on writing something this big when I need to be writing books that I have a larger chance of selling and making money on. But it's cool. It's a cool one. Okay, how do I talk about this? Okay, yeah, I can talk about this in a way that's not even specific at all. It's gonna sound very generic, but it's a world where gods have these bonds. Like, remember I told you I like bonds with humans, and things happen. And you know me, it's gonna be filled with family drama and political scheming because that's the kind of fantasy I love, and apparently horrendous villains. The next card is just a play on theme. I would like to play with different paths to power. One character choosing money, another one political connections, alliances, another one secrets, another one beauty, magic, fear. That would be very fun. This would be easy to fit into one of these big fantasy books. And lastly, I have an idea for an adult thriller that's gonna be kind of like a meta publishing thing. There's been quite a few books coming out like that, like The Writing Retreat and The Last Word, that is about writers and murder. So that's it. Or at least that's the ones that I can kind of simplify down so they're not very spoilery or going to, you know, show you my real funsy ideas. But I want to know what kind of tropes you guys want to play with one day in the future. Do you have any books that you're like, oh yeah, I love that, I want to write something like that, but like put my own twist on it? Do you have any character archetypes that you're like, ooh-wee? You'll have to let me know down in the comments. I hope this video was fun for you and not super boring, and you'll forgive the low energy, low quality video this week. It's Christmas, dang it. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. You know, I have 2 books out, The Glass Witch and The Odds, and I think they're pretty great. They might make good Christmas presents if you know, felt so inclined to purchase. I'm just saying. Order links, of course, will be down below. Like the video if you haven't already, and subscribe if you want to hang out with me more and maybe see some of these ideas come to fruition one day. And thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you're having a great December, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.